What kind of person pulls a gun on a neighbor over a patch of grass? The kind who believes she owns the world. That's who. Karen Miller, the self-appointed queen of our HOA, stormed onto my property that sweltering July afternoon. Her face red with fury, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. I was kneeling in my garden, hands deep in the soil, tending to the marigolds I'd planted with my late wife, Sarah. The sun beat down. Cicadas hummed. And my son, Ethan, was filming a time-lapse of the flowers for his school project. I didn't see Karen coming, but I heard her before I saw her, her heels clacking on the pavement like a war drum, her voice barking my name. Emma Thompson, you're done stealing my land, she shrieked, pointing at the flower bed. I stood, wiping dirt from my hands, confused. This was my yard, my home, the place where Sarah and I had raised Ethan, where we'd laughed and cried and built a life. The property line was clear, marked by a low stone wall Sarah had loved. But Karen, all 5 feet of her puffed up with rage, wasn't here for reason. She was here for war. She thrust a crumpled surveyor's map in my face, claiming the flowerbed was 2 feet over the HOA's boundary, technically community property. I tried to explain that the wall had been there for decades, that the HOA had never cared before. But Karen wasn't listening. Her eyes glinted with something dangerous, something beyond petty neighborhood disputes. You'll tear it down by tomorrow, or I'll make you, she spat, her hand twitching toward her purse. I laughed, thinking she was bluffing. But Ethan, quiet and observant at 14, stopped filming the flowers and turned his phone toward us. I didn't know it then, but that moment would change everything. Karen's voice grew louder, her accusations wilder. She called me a thief, a liar, said I was disrespecting the community she'd worked so hard to protect. Neighbors peeked from windows, drawn by the commotion, but no one stepped in. I stood my ground, telling her to leave, but she stepped closer, her bulk looming despite her small frame. Then, with a smirk, she reached into her purse and pulled out a pistol. My heart stopped. The world narrowed to the glint of metal in her hand, the way her fingers curled around the grip. Move the wall, Emma, or I swear I'll make you regret it, she said, her voice low and venomous. Ethan gasped, his phone still recording, capturing every word, every tremble of the gun. I raised my hands, my voice steady despite the fear clawing at my chest. Karen, put that away. This is about flowers. For God's sake. But she didn't. She waved the gun, gesturing at the flower bed, her eyes wild with power. I thought of Sarah, how she'd loved this garden, how she'd taught Ethan to plant seeds with care. I thought of Ethan, watching this unfold, and anger surged past my fear. You're not taking this from me, I said, stepping forward. Karen's face twisted, and for a moment, I thought she'd pull the trigger. But then a neighbor, old Mr. Jenkins, shouted from his porch, Karen, stop it. And she froze, the spell of her rage broken. She shoved the gun back into her purse and stormed off, yelling that I'd regret defying her. I collapsed onto the grass, shaking, as Ethan ran to me, his phone still in hand. Mom, are you okay? He asked, his voice small. I hugged him, trying to shield him from what had just happened, but he was already piecing it together. I got it all on video, he said quietly. That night, we watched the footage together, the shaky clip showing Karen's tirade, the gun, her threats. It was chilling, undeniable evidence of her madness. But more than that, it revealed something deeper. Karen wasn't just a bully. She was desperate. The video caught a moment when her eyes darted to the side, as if she was hiding something. Ethan noticed it too. "Why is she so obsessed with our yard?" he asked. I didn't have an answer, but I knew we needed to find out. We took the video to the police, who took it seriously but said they needed more to press charges. Assault with a deadly weapon required intent, and Karen could claim she never meant to shoot. Still, they issued a restraining order and promised to investigate. The next morning, I dug into the HOA records, determined to understand why Karen cared so much about 2 feet of land. What I found was a shock, a twist that turned my anger into something colder. The HOA had been planning to sell a strip of community property to a developer for a new access road. And Karen, as president, stood to gain a hefty personal commission. My flower bed, technically on that strip, was the only thing standing in her way. She wasn't just enforcing rules. She was scheming to profit, using her power to bully me into compliance. The truth hit me like a punch. Karen's threats weren't about pride or control, they were about money. I shared the discovery with Ethan, who was furious. "She can't get away with this," he said, his young face set with determination. We decided to fight back, not just for our land, but for every neighbor Karen had intimidated over the years. We rallied the neighborhood, showing them the video and the documents. People were horrified. Karen's reign of terror wasn't new, but no one had dared challenge her before. Mr. Jenkins admitted she'd bullied him into paying fines for his dog's barking. Another neighbor, Maria, said Karen had threatened to foreclose on her home over unpaid dues. Together, we filed a formal complaint with the HOA board and the police, demanding Karen's removal and a full investigation. But Karen wasn't going down without a fight. She called an emergency HOA meeting, claiming I was spreading lies to undermine her. The night of the meeting, the community center was packed, the air thick with tension. Ethan clutched his phone, ready to show the video again, but I could see the fear in his eyes. I squeezed his hand, whispering, "We're doing this for Mom's garden." He nodded, and we stepped into the lion's den. Karen stood at the front of the room, her arms crossed, her face a mask of righteous indignation. She launched into a tirade, accusing me of fabricating the video, of forging documents, of trying to ruin her reputation. The crowd murmured, some nodding in her favor. She ruled the HOA for years, after all, and her influence ran deep. But I was ready. I stood, my voice steady, and recounted the truth, the gun, the threats, the developer deal. I held up the HOA documents, passing copies to the crowd. Then Ethan, brave beyond his years, connected his phone to the projector. The room fell silent as the video played, Karen's voice booming, her gun gleaming, her threats chilling. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Karen's face paled, but she doubled down, screaming that the video was edited, that I was a liar. But the evidence was undeniable, and the neighbors' faces shifted from doubt to outrage. Then came the twist that broke her. Mr. Jenkins, trembling but resolute, stood and revealed he'd overheard Karen on a call with the developer, promising to clear the Thompson land for a bonus. Maria followed, sharing how Karen had manipulated her into silence. One by one, neighbors spoke up, their stories painting a picture of a tyrant who'd abused her power for years. Karen's composure cracked. She shouted, cursed, even lunged at me. But the crowd held her back. The police, called by a neighbor, arrived mid-meeting. They'd reviewed the video and the developer deal. And with the neighbors' testimonies, they had enough. Karen was handcuffed, her screams echoing as they led her away, charged with assault and fraud. The room erupted in cheers, but I felt no joy, only relief, and a deep ache for the peace we'd lost. Karen's downfall was swift. The HOA board dissolved her presidency, and the developer deal collapsed under scrutiny. The neighborhood elected a new president, Maria, who promised transparency and fairness. But the scars remained. My flowerbed, once a symbol of love, now felt like a battleground. Ethan struggled with nightmares, haunted by the gun, and I blamed myself for not protecting him sooner. Yet in the wreckage, something beautiful grew. The neighbors, once divided by fear, came together. They helped me rebuild the flowerbed, planting new marigolds in Sarah's honor. Mr. Jenkins brought Ethan a camera tripod, encouraging him to keep filming, to tell stories that mattered. Maria organized community nights, where we shared meals and laughter, rebuilding trust. One evening, as the sun set over the garden, Ethan showed me a new video he'd made, a montage of the neighborhood's recovery, set to Sarah's favorite song. It showed kids playing, neighbors gardening, the flowerbed blooming again. "This is for Mom," he said, tears in his eyes. I hugged him, my heart full. Karen had tried to steal our land, our peace, but she'd underestimated user love, our resilience, our community. We'd fought not just for a patch of earth, but for the right to live without fear, to honor the past while building a future. As the marigolds swayed in the breeze, I felt Sarah's presence, her strength guiding us forward. We'd won, not by sinking to Karen's level, but by standing together, by choosing hope over hate. And in that moment, I knew we'd be okay.